Have you? And I'm assuming you watched it because there's a comment on it from you at the
Yeah.
bottom, which was very, very funny.
Yeah. The theme song is just so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Welcome. You are entering a strange realm. A realm of what ifs. What if movies, television shows, and video games were better, worse, bizarrer, or downright different? What might they look like? Find out on today's episode of CineCasters.
Welcome back to the CineCasters podcast. This is the podcast where we watch movies or TV shows and then pitch them back to one another to see if we could make them different or better, or I guess better in our opinion, because it's all subjective. So come on in and you can settle down and listen to us pitch awesome ideas or semi-awesome ideas to each other on this early morning. I'm Janglez Strange, and today I'm joined by Alyssa.
Hello.
Always the same hello. And today
Always.
today we are looking at I think this might be my most disappointing Pixar movie. Oh, that's
Really?
not true actually. I don't like Cars very much.
You don't like Cars very
No,
much?
I think Cars is dumb.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna argue the fact that it isn't dumb. Like it is pretty
Cars
dumb.
could be so
but,
much
like,
better. We're going to pitch that one, but today we're doing The Good Dinosaur.
I liked this one.
I figured
I
you
didn't
would.
find it disappointing.
I had
Cried
bets.
a little bit.
I had bets on whether Alyssa would cry during this movie because I told
did.
her to watch Wolfwalkers after I did the episode of This Is a Thing on Wolfwalkers, and then was like bets that Alyssa cries during The Good Dinosaur, and I was right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good movie. It was yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So goods and bads. Where are you at with The Good Dinosaur?
I really liked the start where they didn't have a narrator. They showed, hey, what if the dinosaurs weren't killed in a mass extinction?
Mm-hmm.
And like that, that's a good way of doing it. It's just showing like, oh, it missed. The meteor missed.
I thought it was just this funny little gag because a lot of like movies start out like 65 million years ago, the KT boundary event, and then it's like all the dinosaurs died out. But instead, it was just like pew, just
Yeah.
scoots right past the Earth, and you're like, huh, yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. And it worked so well to like be like, this is what we're exploring, is what if the dinosaurs were still around.
yeah.
So, Disney, or I guess Pixar, was just flexing their animation for the water
Yeah, I
and
was
the
gonna say
trees
that
and the clouds.
this is something that really actually is I'm really impressive about this movie, but also pissed me off about this movie, and that is the fact that this movie, the backgrounds, the nature, the water, the lighting effects look so good, like absolutely so good, but the
Just
dinosaurs look like clay models. Like
A little bit.
they look. It pisses me off. They look like a 4-year-old or like a second grader, which I realize is not the same thing. But like basically, like a second grader was like, "Look at my picture of a dinosaur," and then they were like, "That's a great picture of a dinosaur. Let's turn that picture, not a dinosaur, but let's turn that exact picture into a 3D animation." They're like all the
Yeah.
dinosaurs are like lumpy and cartoonish and like
Yeah.
boxy. And yet the nature in the background looks so good.
I mean, I guess someone in, because I'm assuming they have different animation people, just whoever did all the backgrounds was just like, I'm going to do everything in my power to make this amazing.
Well, it probably wasn't
And
one
then
person.
the other person was just like, meh.
I get a feeling that this is probably something that was gone over by direction or art direction, where they were like,
Probably.
"Oh, we don't want the dinosaurs to look too scary because we want them to be like friendly, so we need them to be a little bit more cartoonish." But then they don't fit in the world very well.
Yeah.
They look different from the world that they exist in.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's ever played Kingdom Hearts, but there are times where there's like Final Fantasy or Square Enix characters that are put into Disney worlds. And sometimes it's like, this is weird. It just looks like they're floating because they don't look like they're part of the world.
Yeah.
Now, that's the point in Kingdom Hearts, so it's forgivable. But in this, I was like, this is weird. Like, your cartoony-ass, lumpy fucking dinosaurs don't look like they fit in this, like, gorgeous water.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
irritating.
Yeah. And then let's see, what were my other ones? I liked the dinosaurs having jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that, the why am I blanking on the word? They eat plants.
The herbivores.
Yeah, the herbivores have a farm and the carnivores have a ranch.
It's early.
And I thought that was really brilliant.
Yeah. Did you realize what this movie was?
No.
It's a frontier western.
Kind of.
That's what it is. His family goes out into the wilderness, the frontier, builds a farm together, but things are hard. They have to get things done, and he winds up far away from home with a bunch of ranchers. It's literally a western.
Okay. I never looked at it that way because they were in the mountains.
Like there's even that scene where he says goodbye to Spot. Like, so Spot goes back with his family. That's the human critter. And like I almost could hear them, instead of doing the way that they did it, where they're like, no, you gotta go. Instead, I could almost hear them doing like the, go on, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like the classic. That's what this movie is. It's literally that movie.
But with dinosaurs. Oh, man. No, I did not pick up on that, which is funny because I like Westerns.
But it's a frontier Western, like, and he comes back like from nature in the wild, and he's like, now I'm a man and I can put my mark on the world. I guess my problem with this movie is it's literally like he goes and gets lost and then finds his way home, which I don't even know. Like, I guess maybe I feel like too much of the conflict and what's happening is like, and then, but it's not connected. There's not a main villain.
It's not really driven too much by Arlo. Like, it's just he's angry, he chases a human.
That's right. It's
gets lost.
It's passive heroism, right? Things happen to Arlo instead of because of Arlo.
Yeah.
And the only thing that really happens because of Arlo is him trying to get back home, but then along the way things always happen to him. They're not driven by him.
Yeah.
Like, things just sort of show up. Like, I'm thinking when he first meets the pterodactyls, he screams for help from the T-Rexes. The T-Rexes show up, and then they do that. Then the T-Rexes want Arlo to do something, and they do that. Then, and then Arlo's like, I gotta go back home. So that's a decision that he makes, but then everything else happens to him, not because of him. There is motivation for him to get back home. He wants to get back home. That's good motivation. Yeah. But the events that happen along the way aren't driven by him. Mm-hmm. They're always like, he meets this thing and then that happens. He meets this other thing and then that happens. The storm happens. The river breaks. They all feel like they're like, in a story structure, when you have like man versus nature, which a lot of this is, like, the main conflict is Arlo getting over his PTSD, but also like with the storm, like washing his dad away, and then he like overcomes his fear of the storm in order to save Spot, which is good theming. The overwhelming, like, oh, nature is this thing you can't control, that's fine. But when the events that are based around like character interactions feel like they have the same lack of control as the nature interactions, I feel like we're missing something. Other than the one where he fights off the pterodactyls the second time and saves Spot, there's not really Arlo doesn't solve his own problems, really. And I know that's the point, like the theme, oh, he's supposed to like grow up, but I have two problems with this. The first is like, there's like 3 themes in this movie, and none of them land really well. Mm-hmm. Like, there's like,
I don't actually know if I could place them.
Oh, like making your mark? Like doing something that's bigger than you?
I guess that one was pretty obvious.
That's pretty obvious. But then there's also family. That's a huge obvious one.
Yep.
And there's also overcoming your fears. And I think all of them land, but none of them land particularly well, because I actually think they're fighting for screen time. Yeah. Like, I actually thought that Arlo's saying goodbye to Spot, like Spot going off with his own family, I actually thought that was kind of antithetical to the point of the movie.
Yeah.
I assumed that Arlo and Spot were family now. That's where that was going.
That's what I thought too. And I was like, why aren't you taking Spot home? That doesn't seem right. Like, I get
Yeah,
that there's
instead
other
you're just
humans
like,
there.
oh, there's strangers who are probably like, cool, here's our next meal, and they're just gonna eat Spot. Like cannibals. I mean, we don't know.
I sure hope not.
Well, the pterodactyls turned out to be cannibals.
That's true.
And the T-Rexes turned out, or the not cannibals, but they eat critters. And the T-Rexes turned out to be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like, this movie's all about kind of misconceptions rooted in dinosaurs. So, like, we see a bunch of humans who are like, oh, we'll look after Spot, but it turns out they're actually, I don't know, cultists.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there. There are some really interesting, like, ideas in this movie. I just don't think either of any of those three themes land, and I think they could have been connected, but for me the weakest theme was actually like overcoming your fears, because it's not a fact that like Arlo's scared of something and needs to overcome it. It's like Arlo's scared of everything, and that's not a good character. It's just kind of a trope.
Yeah. I have a big question that is just written all in caps. How is this a children's movie? Because there's all of this talk of like having Spot get eaten.
Yeah, but
like
Spot isn't really a human per se. That's one of the interesting things I think about this movie is like Spot is a human, but he's not our main character. So we've sort of reversed it. Now Spot is the dog, right? Hence his name being Spot. It's quite clever that way. Like the human takes on the role of the pet or the dog or the companion, as opposed to, Arlo or a dog or any other.
But I also don't know if that really made a whole lot of sense, because they clearly had self-awareness because they were covered. Like they had clothes. I don't know about Spot because Spot was young.
But I don't know. That may have just been like, we need to do that because of, like laws around how much you can show a child naked.
True.
Right? Like I wonder, because I wondered about that too, but I also think like maybe that has more to do with not self-awareness, but more to do with the fact that like it's a movie.
Yeah.
And we can't just show a naked child running around.
Yeah. That's true, I guess. But I would have just been like, well, let's make this work for us. How can we change the story so that it makes sense?
I would maybe keeping him naked, but just being careful about how you show him.
Yeah.
Like, so you never see him from the front, or there's always like a leg in front or whatever. But I also wonder, they might have been like, whoa, the child's naked and that's a thing. You know what I mean?
True.
Who knows with like the ratings boards or whatever? They always make arbitrary decisions where they'll be like, there's like a little bit of blood, so this is now rated teen. But meanwhile, there's another movie where there's like, a very suggestive man or woman with their like parts exposed, and they're like, yeah, that's normal. Actually, the ratings boards don't like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Horror movies is always, I was talking to Nate, and he was saying horror movies are always really ridiculous that way, in that there'll be like somebody gets their spine ripped out, and they're like, no, that's fine, but we can't have too many swear words in the movie. And you're like, about what?
Yeah.
So I think like I honestly feel like them being covered up is more a case of like, if we don't do that, then we'll get pinged by the ratings boards because stupidity.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to forgive that one.
I guess.
I'm willing to forgive that one.
I was like, no, I gotta incorporate this into my pitch.
Because what I do think is actually really interesting is the scene where Arlo describes family as like an abstract concept, because family is pretty abstract.
Yep.
Right? And so he like does it with the circle and the sticks, and yet Spot is able to understand. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, because like the concept, like, so there's this philosophical concept called semiotics, and the way semiotic works is like signs, indexes, and symbols, and how you like convey information with abstract signs. And sometimes it's like abstract information, but like if it doesn't apply to people, how do you know? So I'm thinking, for instance, like if we look at like standard signs for bathrooms, right? The male sign and then the female sign has like a triangle imposed over top, as though the female is wearing a dress. But like that's very antiquated. Mm-hmm. Like many women don't like wearing dresses or skirts or anything like that. And also like even our function of how we understand gender has very much changed now. So those like signs only really apply to humans in terms of like how to show male versus female. So then people would be like, well, okay, what if we switched over to like the masculine arrow and the feminine like symbol, you know, the one with like the circles, like the circle and the arrow for masculine and the circle and the cross for feminine.
Yep.
But those are even more abstract. Like at least the bathroom signs, the traditional bathroom signs say or show humans, you know what I mean? Even though they don't actually show anything to do with male or feminine gender constructs or even like anatomy. It's so the idea of like, how do you communicate with another creature or being that isn't the same, doesn't have the same physiology as you? How do you communicate the idea of family and whatnot? That's really interesting, I actually think, because I mean, I'm reading into it way more than the movie does, but like the fact that they understand each other through some kind of like semiotic lingua franca is this really neat concept. And then they like commiserate together. That scene gets me every time. I'm like, this is so well done in a single scene, and it makes me disappointed by the rest of the movie because I'm like, yes, it's so well done.
Yeah, that part I was just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
I didn't cry there, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna cry at some point. Now that that has happened.
And their commiseration as they like both howl over the loss of a family member is really well done. It's like, oh, we have this. How do you describe this abstract concept using a circle, right? And then later on, that comes back when he actually like draws the circle around Spot and the family, and Spot understands. Like, it's like, no, this is really, really neat. It's a neat concept, the way that you're trying to impart information of a very, like, how do you describe family? Like, what the fuck is family?
Related by blood.
But not.
I guess because Spot isn't actually related to this family by blood.
Right. So we're describing, like, using symbols, semiotics, we're describing a very, very abstract concept of family, like something that ties people together in a much more complicated way than just, I was born from you.
True. Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that was very interesting. I was like, oh, maybe we should have explored, because to me, I feel like family is a far more prominent theme in this movie because of scenes like that. So I sit there and go like, why isn't that our main theme? Why do we constantly talk about making our mark? Like, it seems Arlo's goal is to make his mark.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't care anymore. Once he leaves the farm, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, once he leaves the farm, why would that be his only focus?
Yeah.
Well, it's not his only focus.
It's not his only focus, but it becomes like, is the focus, to me, it feels like he's becoming family with Spot. Like, he's learning what it means to be family. But he already has a family. So he wants to make his mark. And when he comes back, they're like, oh, you can make your mark. And it's like, but why? What did he do to earn his mark?
Survived in the wilderness.
But that's not bigger than him. You know what I mean? His dad at the beginning says you got to do something that's for more than just yourself. It's bigger than you. Now, you could argue he comes back and survives, and that helps, and then helps his family like harvest the food, but like,
they'd already basically finished by then.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel like, how is this? What did he do to deserve making his mark? There's no, I don't know. There's no real point to it, in my opinion. Which is why I actually think the theme of family winds up being more appropriate. Yeah. Which we get with Spot, but we never really get the sense of family closure with Arlo, other than the fact that he's back with his family now.
Yeah, and they hug at the end, and that,
Okay, like,
and that's it.
I don't know. That's it, right? We never, and he overcomes his fears, so good for him. But that's a weaker. That feels like it shouldn't have been a theme and should have been more like a character arc, which it is. But I feel like they beat you over the head with it a bit too much. Mm-hmm. Like, Arlo's a scaredy cat. He's afraid of the chickens, which the cluckers, I think, is what they call them. Which pisses me off because dinosaurs were evolved, or birds evolved from dinosaurs. So, like, how the fuck does that work?
It's also been like multiple millions of years, and there's humans around.
True,
So
but
they could have evolved.
Part of why the birds evolved from dinosaurs was because of the KT extinction.
True. But would it have still happened even without the extinction?
No, man. Lots of evolution is like really complicated. Things that we think of as like environmental factors or even like just a change in diet can affect how plants prosper, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's this great YouTube channel called PBS Eons where they talk about crazy stuff that happens. Like without the advent of long-necked dinosaurs in the Amazon, like that's how the Amazon was able to grow the way it was, because there wasn't dinosaurs like eating plants high up. So now we have this like dense canopy that causes less sunlight to get through, which makes the rainforest like much more densely packed, so plants that need a lot of sunlight can't survive there anymore. So that's why we get like that kind of specification in the rainforest. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
We often think about in story terms, but it's the same idea. We often think about like setting as the backdrop for where your story takes place, for where your characters move through it. So in this case, we could say like, oh, the plants or the rainforest is the backdrop. It's the setting for where my dinosaur characters move through things, but that's not true, right? Those two things interact heavily, both biologically and, if you're a good storyteller, narratively.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was a really good analogy. You're welcome. Whew.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pat myself on the back there. My point there was basically just like the birds and the dinosaurs. That really ticks me off because it's like whatever.
And then there was also the other dinosaur that had little birds.
Yeah, on it, like
which I think would have taken more time to evolve after the cluckers, because the cluckers kind of looked still a little like prehistoric.
Yeah.
But like he had a cardinal sitting on his horn.
Yeah. There was also a snake with appendages.
Yep, I thought that was
great. Pretty neat. Yeah. I thought that when he meets the Triceratops with all the animals on him,
mm-hmm.
I thought that entire scene was superfluous. There's no need for it.
There was no need for it.
It's a dumb scene.
Yeah.
I actually think they should have gone straight to... So after the storm, you know, the storm at the beginning that washes his dad away, we should have met the pterodactyls immediately then.
That's what I thought as well.
Because that's a
pretty
storm.
Big storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the storm appears 3 times in the entire movie, right? And each time we should meet the pterodactyls immediately afterwards. Because that way, when the storm comes the 3rd time and we see like the upside down shark imagery.
Which was really cool.
Which was fantastic. And the music and tone and everything about that scene was so well done. Wow. It's like I was sitting there going like upside down sharks, what? And like the tone, the music there, and I was like, yo, this is scary.
Mm-hmm.
In like a good way. Like I'm not frightened, but I'm like, yo, this is trepidatious. This is like everything about this what I'm seeing visually, what I'm hearing sonically, and Arlo's reaction to it is like, what is that? Whoa, this is bad. Like bad vibes in the best way possible.
Yeah. I would have thought that he might have already known as well what was coming because he had met them previously, but I guess this was This was the first time that he had seen them in the middle of the storm rather than after the storm.
And in the clouds. But also, like, when you see them, you're like, what? Like, even I was like, what is that? And then I sort of guessed. But, like, it's a good kind of mystery because then the upside down shark imagery, that's a powerful scene.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Now, was it their beak that was...
I don't know what it was supposed to be.
I couldn't really tell.
Yeah, I couldn't tell either, and I didn't really care. It was just awesome. Very, very cool. There was also the when he remembers his papa, like his like dream sequence, and I felt like that was superfluous too.
Yeah, it was like a reminder of like, here's what you need to do, and you didn't actually need that because he already knew what he needed to do.
Exactly. So I think it
didn't change his position. He was already on his way to go save Spot.
Yeah, it was just basically like a reminder of that. Okay, so here's where I'm gonna pull out my second revelation. Not that just
Okay.
that this is a frontier western, but that this is actually just the Lion King.
I actually thought that at one
Yeah.
point too,
Where his
because
dad
in
gets
the
swept
Lion
away.
King, the same thing happens.
And I was like, oh, fuck, you're going to Mufasa me all over again, Disney?
Yeah.
And try to play
Yeah.
like it's not. But then in the dream sequence, it's literally Mufasa and the stars going, remember who you are, Simba. Remember. Except it's not as cool because it's not James Earl Jones. No offense to the
Yeah.
actor who plays Papa, but this dream sequence isn't set up as dramatically.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of a red herring.
Though the footprints not being there, I was like, okay, is this not his, like, it's not his father, it can't be his father.
Yeah.
And then the footprints weren't there, and I was like, oh.
But it's unnecessary. It doesn't do anything for the plot.
Nah.
Ugh. I don't know. But I mean, we've done some stuff, a lot of stuff that we didn't like. So what was some stuff that you did like unequivocally? Like I talked about the reverse shark scene with the pterodactyls. Some stuff you unequivocally liked.
I really liked the T-Rexes.
Yeah, right?
And I like that Arlo was like almost inspired by how like rough and tumble they were, and how like they were talking about their scars, and that, yeah, I liked that. I thought they were like really inspiring for the main character. And I wish we could have stayed with them for longer, because I thought they were so fun.
They were so two things for that came out of me, because I also like the idea that it didn't even necessarily matter if the stories they told about the scars were true. Mm-hmm. It was more about like the fact that they had them, like there was a story behind them. I don't think that they were necessarily that they were unreliable narrators when they were telling their stories, but I also think that like part of the point of that was like that they could like put on some bravado and be like, and when Butch the father dinosaur says like, there's 3 crocodiles and I bit one in half and then drowned the last one in my own blood, like that's hyperbole for sure. It is.
Yeah.
But like I don't think that he didn't fight crocodiles. I think the point is that it was
he had a croc tooth in his gums.
Exactly. And he like you can see the side of his face has this neat scar on it, but like it's about what more so it was about like these are all stories that we've done and we like to tell them to each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's about the things we've done. It's not and for Arlo in terms of fear, it's like, oh, like I'm afraid of getting hurt, but like when you survive, these are all stories that you tell.
Yeah.
In the craziest way possible, right? So
yeah. I almost kind of wish that the scars kind of came back, so that when he meets up with his family again, they're like, oh my God, you're covered in scars, you poor thing. And he's just like, no, it's fine. I have stories to tell you now. Yeah,
each one's a story. Almost like that's his mark.
Yeah.
Like the
Literally
scars are his like the mark of what he's done, as opposed to the things he's done.
I wish that came back.
I know, like that's whatever. I also realized while I was listening to this, so Sam Elliott plays Butch, the father dinosaur, and he's Sam Elliott's like famous for having like a cowboy voice, and he does it really, really well. And I just realized while I was watching this, I was like, I think all I ever wanted in life was Sam Elliott to like tell me that I'm doing okay. I think that would make me like avoid any existential crisis if you just heard Sam Elliott be like, nah, kid, you're doing a good job. Keep trying out there. I'd just be like, thanks, Sam Elliott.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. I agree.
But like, I don't know. Other than that, like, I didn't hate this movie. It's not a bad movie. I just feel like, honestly, I feel like it probably got rewritten a few times and some parts weren't thought about after they were rewritten.
Yeah.
Like some parts weren't like, oh, well, why do we have this? Like, because oftentimes Disney and Pixar movies will come in with 1 or 2 really strong themes, and without beating you over the head, they drive them home.
Yeah.
Right?
But this one had a couple, 3.
I picked up 3, right? That was my interpretation, and none of them really landed all that well. Oh, for sure. You could definitely you could definitely pull out more. I mean, there's no wrong reading into art, right? So those are just the ones that I pulled out based on my experience, and I didn't feel like it nailed any of them. But like if somebody's listening and they're like, yo, you missed this theme and that's the whole point of the movie, then I'm totally willing to be like, yeah, I missed the point of the movie, if you can, make it work.
Yeah.
If you're just stretching, like.
I do know one of the things that I remember learning in school, I can't remember exactly which course it was, but for a children's movie, they always have to come home.
Really?
Yeah, that's like one of the big like driving themes is they always have to come home no matter what happens because that's their safe space. Pardon?
Is there any reason for that? Like I'd have to think, is there like a narrative or psychological reason for that?
I think it's a comfort thing. I can't remember. I wish that I had my notes about it with me right now because then I would be a little bit more clear. But I just remember we were talking about the difference between like writing for different age groups.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're writing for children, like you always want the character to get home and to be safe. Like there is no cliffhangers. Not allowed. Whereas if you're writing for teens, they're allowed to be a little more rebellious and maybe things aren't the same when they get home. But because this is a children's movie, it's like he had to get home. Like as much as I really wanted him to go. I wanted him to go with the T-Rexes.
Oh, okay.
I thought that would be hilarious.
I never
like as much as I almost didn't want him to get home because he was learning so much and we were meeting so many other types of dinosaurs and it seems really boring at his home. At the same time, it was like, no, I know he needs to go home.
See, I was fine with him going home. It just there needed to be like a thematic resolution for him being at home. Like him going home is basically his entire goal. I got to get back to my mom and my family, and that's a strong theme if you can make it work, right? I got to get back to my family. But as far as thematic resolutions go, as far as like what does he get out of going back home? Right? Because it seems
the point
to me
of children's movies.
It seems to me that he actually gets more from being on the adventure than he does from getting back home.
That's what I thought too.
And that makes me think like, well, if he's learning more and finding out more about himself while being on the adventure, then sure, he comes back home and things are different. But like ultimately, won't he just be bored?
That's what I was thinking. And it's weird because I think they make it out to be like the safe space. You're not going to get in trouble there. But he's also grown and he now like can identify what is actually trouble and what is just a little scary.
And also when he was at the farm, like he never really belonged there anyway.
Exactly.
It was never, I mean, it was a safe place for him, but it was never really a place of growth or triumph.
Yeah. So that's one of the problems that I had with it was like, it's a children's movie, so he has to go home, but I don't want him to.
It doesn't feel like that's a place for him to be anymore. It's not a place for him to grow. It's not and not a place, and like not when he was there. It wasn't like I've outgrown this place, I need to move on. It was like, this isn't a place where Arlo prospers.
Yeah.
He never felt like this place was. But with the T-Rexes, he learned.
Yeah.
And he feels more at home with them than I think he does with his own family.
Well, maybe now that he knows how to ranch longhorns, maybe he'll be able to deal with the cluckers better.
I wouldn't disagree, but it would just be like, what does Arlo get out of being at home other than being with his family? Like, you bring up a good point, Alyssa.
Yeah.
Is it just because it's children's literature, so he has to go home?
Yep. Because if we think about all of the other movies that we've ever done that have been children's movies, like Bolt made it home.
Yeah, he makes it, but his home isn't like home as in a place. His home is with Penny.
Yeah.
So, but that matters. Like, home is with Penny, not. And then we also find Rhino and Mittens are also included into that.
Yeah. And they find a home.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the same with Spot in this one, is he doesn't have a home, but then he finds a home.
Yeah, and then he finds a home. But I thought they were leading towards like Arlo and Spot are now family.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. I don't know. Because like found families can be incredibly important, and you know I talked a little bit about that in the episode of Owl House. This is a thing on Owl House. How found families can actually be a place where you can explore with less judgment. You can explore
Yep.
your identity with less judgment than you might be able to do in your blood family, like your familial family, because you're not, your familial family is a blood relation. They may not understand you in terms of how you identify with yourself or how you see yourself, because that's just not how familial families work all the time, right? Depending on what the values of your familial family are. But a found family can be a place, especially because you choose them and they choose you, can be far more powerful in terms of how you interact with them.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Should we get into some pitches?
Yeah. I'd like to go first.
Oh, I was going to say, how are you feeling about your pitch? Because my pitch is not the greatest, but it's okay.
I didn't really go super in depth with mine. I was just like, hey, this would be cool, and it's a little superficial, I'll admit.
Okay.
But I personally like it. I think it was great, and also it makes sense because it's October.
Oh.
So I made it into a scary movie.
Like Jurassic Park?
No, because there's not as many cool dinosaurs. I actually made this, I think, more boring. My problem with, like, I wish that I could have seen more dinosaurs, like, different types of dinosaurs in the movie, and then I just took all of that, like, out of my pitch.
Oh, wow.
So I'm kind of regretting it, but
Yeah.
I'm not regretting the actual plot line that I came up with.
Okay,
so.
okay.
So we start the same with the meteor missing the Earth because I really liked that. I thought that was funny. And then, a million years later, dinosaurs are roaming the Earth, but they're obviously sentient because they have farms and ranches and stuff. So we kind of hone in on this little dino family farm, and it's just mom, dad, and one baby dino, which is Arlo. The parents basically tell Arlo, okay, we have to go into the village. Yeah, there's a dino village.
Oh, hell yeah.
To trade some of our corn because we're going to see if we can find any tools that'll hold up better than just like using a log, because we have to keep breaking trees down so that we can use logs.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't seem useful. So they leave Arlo home alone to watch the farm.
Nice.
And so that's, the immediate, like, okay, Arlo is a fraidy cat. Now he's home alone.
Home Alone, yeah.
But they believe that he can do this. So shortly after his parents leave, Arlo is working through his chores. He hears a weird noise. This is his first time actually home alone. So he doesn't really know what to do, and he just tries ignoring it. And then while he's, trying to work through the noise, Arlo remembers his father talking about a pest that has been getting into the silo. So after hearing the noise a little bit more, he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to chase it away. Like, I don't know how to deal with it, but I'll chase it away. So it works. And then later that night, Arlo gets woken up by the same sound again. So he gets up to see if he can chase it away again. But before he does that, he sees the shadow of this creature standing on two legs, and it's eating something, and the shadow looks huge because of the way the moon was lighting the angle of the moon. So it's eating something, and Arlo doesn't actually know what. And Arlo is just like frozen in fear. He's like, what is this giant thing? So in the morning, Arlo has barely slept, but he finds corn cobs all over the place around the pen. And then he finds one of the, what were they called? The cluckers?
Yeah, that's what I called them. Cluckers. I think that's what
I just
they're
had
called.
the chicken things.
Yeah.
He finds one of the cluckers has been eaten.
Ooh.
There's a fire pit not too far from the farm, and Arlo knows that it's fire because he's seen some of the devastation of forest fires nearby, but he's never actually seen any fire near the farm before. And his father has told him how, like, destructive and deadly fire can be. So he's just like, what is this creature and how can it use fire? So, da, da, da. Okay, so yeah. So he worries for himself now because he's like, what do I do? Like, I might die here before my parents get back. And he worries about the cluckers because they have a very limited number of them, obviously, and they cost a lot of corn to buy. And, you know, what was able to take out one of their cluckers without him noticing because they're very noisy, right? And he's like, I've worked with them and I don't like working with them because they will shamelessly attack you. So, like, what in the world? So he's just, like, absolutely terrified. And we see that when Arlo is doing his chores for the day. The cluckers are terrifying. So he ends up resolving to find the thing and trap it or kill it so that his farm will be safe when his parents come home and he can show them what he's done. So he tries his best to prepare for the evening. He tries to, like, find a really sharp stick. But also, like, he tries to, like, find a really big stick and, like, sharpen one end. Or, like, I don't know. He was just lining up as many good sticks as he thought. You know, it's kind of like how adults are like, this is a good box, I'm going to keep it. He was like, this is a good stick, I'm going to use it. So, just looking at my notes here. So he heads in for the night. After making sure he gets all his chores done, he finds as many good sticks that he can to use as weapons in the case that he needs them. But that was basically all that he was able to do for today. So he heads back in for the night, and then while he's getting himself settled for the night, he hears some commotion in the coop again. So he grabs the largest log that's near him, because he thinks this thing is huge. And he heads towards the coop. In the moonlight, we can kind of make out that it's like a small figure chasing one of the birds. And small for him, we don't really know the size difference, I guess. Arlo makes a really loud noise. And the thing, we know it's a human because we have eyes, right? Arlo doesn't know what it is, but we know. And the human yells and then runs into the bush. And Arlo was like, well, I'm not chasing you into the forest because that's scary. So Arlo also panics because most things don't really, like, yell back. He's not really used to having predators, I guess, around. And it ran, so he's now confused. Why did it run instead of attack after using such a fierce yell? And so he's just scared. So the next day, Arlo is building traps. He's putting a few around the coop, a few around the silo. He goes through his day, finishes his chores, and then goes back to bed at night. There's a commotion in the coop then, and Arlo tries to go... And, you know, he's, like, ready to smack whatever's trapped. And he sees that it's a clucker that's trapped. And the human... Oh, wait, no. I had that wrong. Sorry. A clucker got trapped. There's feathers all over the place. But the human came and took it out of the trap. And you can kind of tell that. So... I also forgot to mention it's raining. My notes are a little out of order here.
That's okay.
So there's tracks in the mud, and this time he's like, I'm gonna follow it because it's still a little bright out. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go into the forest and find this thing. So Arlo chases it down. He finds a fire in the woods, just in, like, a little covered area because he lives near the mountains and there's random rocky outcrops that, you know, you can hide under if it's raining. He smells the fire, and sees it, and then he finds the human cutting apart the cooked bird with a knife. And then Arlo was about to be like, hey, that's my bird, you can't eat it. And then more humans come out from kind of like the back of the outcrop of rocks, or like the back of the cave, I guess. And they're tinier than the human that has been terrorizing him. So Arlo kind of realizes like, oh, it's a family. That's scary. Now what do I do? They're going to get old and they're going to learn that it's okay to steal our birds. But he's kind of like, I need to go home and I need to think about this, because this is not something I can deal with right now. And my parents are supposed to be home soon. Like they'll be on their way back tomorrow. So maybe my dad will know what to do. I don't know. But at least I found out what it was. Kind of. He's still not sure what they are. And he's also like terrified because they command the fire and they use it to burn the food that they're going to eat, which is like insane to him because he just eats raw leaves.
Yeah.
And corn.
And corn.
And corn. So, as Arlo is getting back to the farm, he hears a sound behind him. It's a human. The human who had been taking from his farm and had been commanding the fire and had a knife. Well, I guess Arlo doesn't know it's a knife, but he knows it's like a tool. He's like, tool. Okay, well, these things know how to use tools. That's like, that's a lot of intelligence for these weird pest critter things. And so Arlo is trying to like fight the human, but the human's not actually fighting back. And he like tries to like hold out his hands to be like, sorry, like I'm not trying to be like, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm not going to set a fire. Like I'm not doing anything. And we see that he's trying to say something, but we don't actually hear it because at that point there's like a crack of thunder or something, plot device.
Yeah.
And then it just turns around and walks back into the forest. And that's the end.
Ooh, spooky.
And we don't know if Arlo understood what it was or not.
I like the idea of, like, especially at the beginning when Arlo's sort of being, like, haunted, quote unquote, by the human. And you could play with, because you could do that one of two ways. You could, without showing the human, you could be like, oh, maybe it is haunted, but then why is he a dinosaur? But I also like the idea of, like, playing it for laughs, like using all these classic tropes of, like, horror movies. But, like, we as the audience would be like, oh, that's funny because we know what's going on.
Yeah. And it's just the idea that, like, the humans have started evolving to the point where they can use tools and they know, not to attack the things that have been kind of providing for them. But they also realize, okay, we shouldn't have been stealing from you. Sorry.
Yeah.
And like Arlo doesn't understand that they understand, but he also is like, okay, they're a little too smart for me. I don't know what's going on and I don't like it.
Yeah. But I think you could play that a lot for laughs. Like that'd be fun.
Yeah.
To do. I like it. It's good. It's very different, but it's much more self-contained. Like you really only have two characters.
Yeah.
Arlo and the one human.
Yeah. I think it would be a little bit shorter of a movie that way, but I like it because
But you could have a tight, like a short, tight animated movie.
Yeah.
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 So in my version, we get the mom and the papa dinosaur leave, but we get a sense that they left some kind of actual civilization and went out to live in the wilds for a better life. So Arlo, Buck, and Libby are all born, and we basically find out that like when you do something bigger than just for yourself, you can make your mark. And in my version, Arlo is less of a scaredy cat, and he's more just kind of like awkward. He doesn't really fit in with what they want to do on the farm. He's not really interested in working on a farm. He's interested in like other things. So Arlo's father tries to get him to deal with the critters by who are stealing their food. And what Arlo finds is actually a bunch of apes. He's like, oh, they're a bunch of like the ape critters. But with the apes is one that appears to be different. It's hairless, and it's always on the outside of the group dynamics. And Arlo manages to scare off all the critters. But in one of his traps, he captures the hairless one. And he sees like, oh man, this one is like on the outside of the group. The group doesn't really seem to like get this hairless one. So he's like, I'm gonna let this one go. So he lets this one go, and Arlo's father shows up, and Arlo's trying to explain like it was different. It wasn't like the other apes. It was like the other critters. It was like hairless, and it doesn't belong with them. It's weird. Us knowing the audience knowing that Arlo feels the same way about his family, and he's like, I'm not gonna kill it. Like I'm not a killer. Like I can't do it. And he's like, his dad's like, but it was for the better of the family. Like you, that's why you can't make your mark. Like it was for something bigger than you. It was for our family. And so his dad's like, okay, we have to go after the critters either way, but if we do this, you can make your mark. But Arlo's pushed too hard, and the river breaks, and his father dies. So same thing.
Yep.
When Arlo returns to the farm, he finds that his siblings and blame him for the death of their father. Like there's a lot of blame going on, and his mother doesn't blame him, but she's like sad, and so there's like this guilt, not just like Arlo's guilt, which he already feels, but like literally like she's sort of like shaming him because there's like all this work to do, and now there's one less person to help harvest. And she's like sad, oh, if only you'd done your job, and then your father wouldn't have had gone out, like that kind of like, not maybe implicit guilt, but like, or maybe an implicit guilt without actually saying it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So one night, Arlo goes outside, and he finds the human critter, who appears to be like forced out of the group, like he's not with the group anymore. And Arlo at first is angry at it because he's like, it blames the critter, this human critter, for the death of his father. But then he realizes that's exactly what his family is doing to him. And he's like, okay. And he apologizes to the critter, but then he's like, what am I doing talking to a critter? This is weird.
Yeah.
But then he realizes basically like, okay, you don't seem to belong with the apes, and I really don't feel like I belong here, so I'm going to leave. And he decides to leave and escape the guilt of his father. And even though it's like time to harvest the food, Arlo's like, it doesn't feel right for me to be here. So he decides to leave. So while he's on his way, he realizes that the human critter is following him, and he's like irritated at first, but then he would get trapped, and the critter would understand like that he's been trapped, and like let him go the same way that Arlo had let him go earlier. So we get this kind of like, oh, there's like an intelligence there. And so from here, the movie plays out the same way. Everything they meet and everyone they come across, like the pterodactyls and whatnot. We also get the same scene where Arlo describes family and his father being gone. And in response to that, Spot, who is his name now, makes the same thing, but instead of burying his family, he moves the two like parent figures outside and then like mimes looking for them. Like outside the circle, and mimes looking for them, and Arlo understands that like he's like, Spot can't find his parents. The apes were not his family. He can't find his family. And eventually he comes to the T-Rex. Arlo and Spot come to the T-Rex family, and actually enjoys being with them. But this family talks a lot about the importance of family and duty to family, and this makes Arlo feel guilty about his failure to his father, like the fact that he left his father and couldn't kill to like make his mark, and the fact that he left before the food was supposed to be a thing. But it also makes him feel guilty because like he feels like he's a part of this family, like they accept him, but that he's afraid they'll find out that he let his original family down, and that will somehow like tarnish his reputation with them because of duty, which is so important to the T-Rexes. But they're basically the same T-Rexes. Like, I just really like that family, yeah.
They're just so good.
So good. We also see that Arlo and Spot are, like, becoming closer, and although they don't talk, they, like, communicate like an owner and a pet, just like we saw in the movie. And eventually, one night, Arlo would tell Butch about his father and what happened. And Butch would basically be like, you can't blame yourself for your father's death. Like, that wasn't your fault. But maybe you probably still shouldn't have left because you let your family down when you said you would help with the harvest, right? So when Arlo protests, Butch is like, no, I don't mean to say that you have to stay with your family. I don't mean to say, like, that's where you belong. I mean, you made a commitment to that family to help them with the harvest, and that's your duty. Wherever you belong might be a different place, but no matter what you do, you still have to, like, do the duty that you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
Then the family doesn't have to be, like, people you were born with. But if you make a promise, you should still keep it. Like, that's important. He says, like, look at you and Spot. You're not related by blood. You're not even the same kind of creature, right? You can't even talk the way that you and I talk, but you're still family, and that's where you belong, right? That's where you find where you belong. So Arlo understands, but he also realizes that he can't stay. He has to go back to his original family and help them with the harvest. Like, that's the right thing to do. So he and Spot leave. And Butch says, if you ever want to come back to like be with the T-Rexes, like you have a place here. Like you can be part of our family. So Arlo and Spot make their way back to the farm, and they can they make their way back to the farm, and they can have the pterodactyls show up. But when the pterodactyls show up, they're actually terrorizing 2 humans, and Spot starts to go nuts, and Arlo understands that this is Spot's parents, and they actually help save Spot's parents and rescue them from the pterodactyls. So Spot is now torn between Arlo being his family, but also finding his parents. And so basically, like, Arlo's like, I have to go do this duty, but you need to be with your parents. And Spot understands, and he sticks his hand in the mud after the storm and puts his hand with the mud on it on Arlo's chest, and then puts Arlo's foot in the mud and sticks Arlo's like foot on his chest. Yeah. And Arlo is like, oh, it's my mark. And this is sort of the way of saying like you changed me.
Yeah.
Right? And then Spot leaves with his family. And so Arlo makes it back to the farm, and he helps his family complete all the harvesting over a few days and tells them all the stories that he's had about the things that he's done and the places that he's been. And they're like excited to have him back, but there's still like he still doesn't belong. So once all the food is stored, he gets up one early morning and is about to leave, and his mother catches him and says like, you really came through, you should leave your mark. But Arlo's like, no, the mark isn't about accomplishment. It's not about what you did, it's about how you connect with other people. You leave your mark on other people, not on things that you do. And you know, it's about the people you care about, and that's why he has like the handprint of Spot on his chest. And he's like, I don't know where I'll go, but like I'm gonna go find my own family where there's people that I care about and that I can make my mark on them, and that feels like a place where I belong. So maybe that'll be with the T-Rexes, or maybe it'll actually be with Spot and his family, but no matter where I'll go, I'm gonna make my mark. And he says, like, you know, just so you know, you made your mark on me, like you'll still be my mom and my siblings. And she's like, yeah, but you made your mark on us too, but like it's just that you just don't belong here. And then he's like, yeah, I'll find my place. And he heads out into the sunrise to find his family and make his mark. Yeah.
I also, as soon as you said like, oh, maybe it'll be with Spot and his family, and I just kind of imagined him like roaming around with like 3 humans just like clinging to his back.
Just like hanging out.
The mental imagery, I was like, this is really cute, because it seems not so much like they're his pets or like that they're
family.
Yeah, they're family, but it's just funny because it's a dinosaur and 3 humans.
Hell yeah, man. But I mean, we often talk about family as like, oh, between species, but like how many people talk about, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to regret that I'm saying this, but how many people talk about dogs or cats as being their quote unquote fur babies? And I absolutely hate that phrase because it's fucking stupid, but it does outline the importance and the underlines the point that I'm making, that like, you know, family doesn't have to be just your like your familial family or your blood family or your marriage partner. It can be a dog or a cat or a hamster or a chinchilla if you're weird like you are.
Like, yeah, I'm weird. Yeah, I was just about to say, like, man, my chinchilla, she is like my pride and joy. Like, she's not like an award-winning, like, did you know that there are chinchilla shows that you can go
I did know that there was chinchilla shows, and that chinchilla fur is highly praised.
She has never been to one of those, but she is still my pride and joy.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That's family, man. That's family.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I wanted to explore family more than I wanted to explore like fear or making your mark. But I felt like making your mark could have been worked into that by the whole like how you make your mark on people, not on your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I like that he was looking for where he belongs.
Yeah.
Or at first it was not so much as looking for where he belongs, but it was like escaping this place that he does not belong, and then it like slowly morphed into finding where he does belong. And I like that.
But also still like being responsible for your duty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this may not be a place where you belong, and it doesn't mean you have to stay there, but you still have to like keep to your word.
Now, I think yours would definitely be better for, like, teenage kids.
Oh, yeah. Well, because he doesn't stay at home.
He doesn't stay at home.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I learned
he's got that little bit of rebellion where it's just like, yeah, you guys are my family, but I don't belong with you guys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and but not even that he like by the end he's like I still don't belong here, but it's not a like a you don't accept me. It's like I have to go find my place.
yeah,
So, yeah.
cool.
Any last minute thoughts about The Good Dinosaur?
The music
Yeah, the
was
music
so
was good.
good.
That's why I keep talking about that reverse shark scene. Is like that's some. It's so spooky, and that only works because the music works.
Okay, so I just had a thought. Sorry, this might add a little bit of extra time, but I just had a thought. So
Okay.
you know how I think that you've made the case before that The Mandalorian is just like a frontier
Yeah,
kind
it's a
of.
frontier western.
Yeah. So and then this is like a frontier western, and then you know The Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. It's a
How like
classic
it's got that
revisionist
like
western.
I don't remember the thing, but the
Yeah.
I don't remember what that is that actually makes that noise, but it had something similar
Oh, like
in this movie and in The
instrument.
Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like that same similar theme to it, like in the music. When I can't remember, it was like in certain points, but
Okay.
so it's all connected. They're all well, I don't think The Good, Bad, and Ugly are owned by Disney, but
No. Well, it might be now. It's hard to
Mandalorian
tell,
and
but The
this one.
Mandalorian was, yeah. But that's
Yeah.
just like a Western trope, like how to convey that you are in the territory of Western movies.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't pick up on that because it was very clear in the music.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Alyssa Lou with 3 O's, or you can find my creative handmade stuff at Alyssa Rose Handmade on Instagram.
You can find our band Robot Philosopher anywhere you listen to dope music. You can also find our other channel called the CineMasters, where we have This Is a Thing and the long and the short of it. And you've got awesome podcasts that are all happening right here on the CineCasters. And thanks so much for hanging out.
Thanks. Bye.